The sky above Earth burned red with the aftermath of battle debris entering the atmosphere, as Eleanor stared through the reinforced viewport of Artemis Base on the lunar surface. She tried not to think about the billions of lives lost in just 3 months since the Vraxians arrived. Their massive ships had appeared without warning and without mercy. They had destroyed every major city on Earth and killed nearly 40% of the human population. Eleanor wiped away a tear and returned. To her workstation, the lunar outpost was one of the last functioning human settlements, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the aliens found them too. She adjusted her scanner equipment and continued mapping the strange energy signatures she had detected beneath the lunar surface 2 days ago. The readings made no sense to her. They indicated something artificial buried deep under the moon's regolith, something that had been there for thousands of years, at least maybe much longer. She tapped her communication badge and called the base commander. Alan stood at the entrance to the newly excavated tunnel, his flashlight beam cutting through the swirling dust as the drilling machines finished their work beside him. Samantha checked her oxygen levels and Kyle readied his weapon. They had been digging for 16 hours straight, following Eleanor's energy readings deeper and deeper beneath the lunar surface. The tunnel now extended almost 2 miles down into previously undisturbed areas of the moon. Alan's voice echoed through their helmet communicators as he ordered the team to advance. They moved carefully through the fresh tunnel, their boots leaving clear imprints in dust that had never been disturbed by any living being. The tunnel suddenly widened into what appeared to be an artificial chamber. Kyle swept his light across the walls, revealing strange markings and symbols, none of them recognized. Eleanor gasped as her scanner readings spiked dramatically. Something big lay just beyond the far wall, something that had been buried here for longer than human civilization had existed on Earth. Samantha approached a section of the wall that appeared different from the rest, slightly discolored with faint lines, forming what might be a doorway. She reached out hesitantly and placed her hand on the surface. The effect was immediate. The entire chamber hummed with sudden energy lines of blue light spread from where her hand touched, running across the walls, ceiling and floor like veins carrying electric blood. The far wall simply disappeared, not sliding away or opening, but simply ceasing to exist before their stunned eyes, revealing an enormous cavern beyond what they saw inside made them freeze in disbelief. 7 massive ships sat in perfect formation, each one larger than the biggest aircraft carrier ever built on Earth. Their hulls were dark metallic, with strange symbols etched into their surfaces, similar to the markings on the chamber walls, but these ships were clearly designed for war. Their sleek forms bristled with what could only be weapon systems. Though like nothing any human had designed, the team entered the cavern slowly, their flashlights seeming pathetically small. In the vast space, Eleanor's scanner indicated the ships were generating power, but at minimal levels, as if sleeping. Kyle examined the nearest vessel's hull and announced that according to his preliminary analysis, the metal alloy wasn't anything known to Earth science. Samantha noticed that certain sections of the ship seemed to glow faintly when they approached, as if responding to their presence. They spent hours examining just the exterior of the nearest ship, finding what appeared to be an entrance near its midsection. The doorway opened as they approached without any visible mechanism. Eleanor's scans indicated the air inside was breathable, though stale after who knew how many millennia. They removed their helmets cautiously and entered the vessel. The interior was just as alien as the exterior, with corridors that seemed to shift subtly as they walked, as if the ship was studying them. As much as they were studying it, they found what appeared to be a control room filled with stations designed for bodies similar to but not quite human. Eleanor estimated, based on the carbon dating from her scanner, that the ships were at least 100,000 years old, which made no sense given their advanced technology. The mystery deepened when they discovered a series of images displayed on one wall, showing what appeared to be 3 distinct species. One was clearly the Vraxians with their distinctive 6-limbed bodies. The second was humanoid, but taller, and with features that seemed almost luminous. The third, to their shock, looked remarkably human. Primitive perhaps, but unmistakably their ancestors. Kyle discovered more images showing a terrible war between the luminous beings and the Vraxians, with the human-like creatures caught in the middle. The images suggested the luminous beings had been protecting the primitive humans before they were defeated by the Vraxians. Their examination was interrupted by an alarm blaring through their communication. Badge's base command reported a Vraxian scout ship had been detected approaching the moon. They had minutes at most before they would be discovered. The team rushed toward the exit. But before they could reach it, they heard the unmistakable sound of explosions above ground. The Vraxians had found the base and were attacking. Eleanor knew they were trapped. The tunnel was their only way out, and the aliens would surely find it soon in desperation. She turned back toward the control room. If these were warships, perhaps they could still function. Perhaps they could fight back. She ran to what appeared to be the central control panel, its surface covered with symbols. She didn't understand, but somehow felt familiar as the sounds of destruction continued above. Samantha and Kyle argued about what to do, but Eleanor acted on instinct, placing both hands on the main control surface and closing her eyes, willing the ship to help them to save them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The ship's system surged to full power, lights blazing throughout its massive form. Eleanor felt a strange connection forming in her mind, as if the ship was communicating directly with her consciousness, showing her how to operate its basic functions. The vessel rose from its resting place, breaking through the lunar crust as if it were paper. The other team members grabbed onto support structures as the ship ascended. The main view screen activated, showing them the surface above where 3 Vraxian vessels were bombarding the remains of Artemis Base, with the base's defenders fighting a losing battle. Eleanor didn't know how she knew what to do, but her hands moved across the controls with certainty, targeting the enemy ships. The ancient vessel fired once, just once, and all 3 Vraxian ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained in lunar orbit. The human defenders stared in shock as the massive unknown ship rose fully from beneath the surface, their weapons trained on it until they received Eleanor's transmission identifying herself and her team. The ship hovered above the lunar surface, its systems now fully awake after 100,000 years of waiting. Eleanor felt its power, its purpose, flowing through her mind. This was no ordinary vessel. It was a weapon of vengeance designed to hunt and destroy Vraxians, and somehow it had chosen her to wield it. She looked at the stunned faces of her teammates, and then back at the view screen, where Earth hung partially destroyed in the blackness of space. She made a decision. Humanity now had a fighting chance, and she was going to make sure they used it. The Vraxians had awakened something they had tried to bury and forget, and soon they would remember why they had feared it so much. Eleanor felt the ship's eagerness to hunt, to destroy its ancient enemy, and she welcomed that feeling. Humanity's vengeance was just beginning. 3 months passed quickly as humanity recovered all 7 ancient vessels from their lunar tomb. The ships, now nicknamed Lazarus vessels, after their resurrection from long sleep, were moved to the newly built Neptune station, far from Vraxian. Patrol's Earth's remaining scientists worked day and night to understand the incredible technology that had saved the lunar outpost. Olivia stood in the engine room of Lazarus 1, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail as she studied the pulsing core that powered the massive ship. Nothing about it matched known physics. The energy readings fluctuated in patterns that seemed almost alive rather than mechanical. She had been chief engineer for only 6 weeks since the previous one died during a Vraxian raid, but in that time she had made more progress than anyone in understanding how the ships worked. The most fascinating discovery came when she noticed that the ship's controls responded differently to different people. Some could barely activate the simplest systems, while others, like Eleanor, could operate complex functions with ease. Olivia theorized that genetic compatibility might be the key and requested DNA samples from everyone who had interacted with the vessels. The results confirmed her hypothesis. Approximately 15% of humans carried genetic markers that matched patterns in the ship's interface systems. Those with the strongest matches experienced a neural connection, allowing them to access the vessel's full capabilities. Admiral Gabriel entered the command center of Neptune Station, his face grim with exhaustion, but his eyes sharp with determination. The station had become humanity's last major off-Earth base after the Vraxians destroyed the Mars colonies. Last month he studied the holographic display, showing the 7 Lazarus ships now fully excavated and operational, their dark hulls gleaming under the station's lights. Beside him stood his new elite team assembled from across Earth's surviving military forces, all selected for their strong genetic compatibility with the ancient vessels. Zoe stood at attention, her pilot's insignia freshly awarded after she demonstrated remarkable skill in maneuvering Lazarus III during simulation runs beside her. Marcus, another pilot with exceptional neural compatibility, adjusted his uniform nervously. Derek, the tactical officer who could access weapon systems with unprecedented precision, waited quietly, while Laura, the weapons specialist who had already mastered 3 different alien weapon platforms, checked her datapad. All of them had the special genetic markers. All of them could connect with the ships in ways other humans couldn't in the research wing of the station. Nathan hunched over ancient data cores extracted from the first Lazarus vessel, his eyes red from lack of sleep, as he worked to decrypt their contents. After weeks of effort, he had finally broken through the security protocols, and what he discovered changed everything. The logs revealed that the ships belonged to a race called the Progenitors, advanced beings who had seeded numerous worlds, including Earth, with their genetic material. They had once controlled a vast portion of the galaxy before, encountering the Vraxians in a war that nearly wiped them out. Nathan's hands trembled as he translated the final entries. The Progenitors created these 7 command ships as a last resort, hiding them on Earth's moon, programming them to remain dormant until their genetic descendants evolved enough to operate them. The ships were designed specifically to fight Vraxians with weapons and defenses tailored to counter their technology. The training sessions intensified as the crew learned to use the neural connections to their advantage. Zoe discovered she could feel the ship's movement as if it were her own body. Marcus learned to navigate using star patterns the ship somehow recognized from 100,000 years ago. Derek found he could target enemies by simply thinking about them, while Laura unlocked weapon systems that defied conventional understanding of physics. The ships moved with impossible grace, phasing in and out of normal space, their energy weapons capable of vaporizing Vraxian cruisers with single shots, while their shields absorbed attacks that would destroy conventional vessels. During a particularly intense simulation, Eleanor experienced a deeper connection, accessing historical records stored in her ship's memory. She witnessed through the ship's recordings the ancient war between Progenitors and Vraxians, saw how the Progenitors had protected early humans from extinction, treating them as precious children to be preserved. She felt the ship's satisfaction at finding worthy pilots after so long. The moment of triumph was short-lived. The long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature approaching from the edge of the solar system. Admiral Gabriel called an emergency meeting of all command staff. The main Vraxian fleet had been detected and was headed directly for Earth. The scout ships and raiding parties humanity had faced so far were nothing compared to what was coming. Intelligence estimated over 1,000 warships in the approaching Armada. Humanity had less than 2 weeks before they arrived. Gabriel looked at his elite team, their faces showing determination, despite the fear they all felt. 7 ships against 1,000. The odds seemed impossible. But these were no ordinary ships. These were the legacy of a civilization far more advanced than either humanity or the Vraxians. The Admiral's voice remained steady as he outlined their options. They could try to hide, abandon Earth, and scatter to the outer reaches of the solar system, or they could use the Lazarus vessels to defend their homeworld. Eleanor spoke up confidently. She had spent more time connected to the ships than anyone, and understood their capabilities better. The Progenitors had built these vessels specifically to defeat Vraxians and had hidden them for a reason. They were meant to be used by humans when the time came. Nathan added new information from his research. The Vraxians had a hierarchical command structure destroy their leadership. Vessels and their fleet would fall into disarray without central coordination. As the meeting continued, Olivia made another breakthrough discovery. The ship's neural interfaces could be enhanced, allowing for deeper connections and access to systems. They hadn't yet activated. The process would be risky, potentially dangerous to the pilots' minds, but could give them access to weapons and defenses powerful enough to challenge the entire Vraxian fleet. The next days passed in frantic preparation. Crew members trained until exhaustion, pushing the neural connections deeper, learning to work in perfect synchronization with the ancient vessels and with each other. Engineering teams installed human-designed communication systems to allow better coordination between the 7 ships and Neptune Station. While science teams continued to unlock more of the Progenitors' technology, every small victory boosted morale. Every new capability discovered gave them hope against the overwhelming odds. Zoe volunteered to be the first to try the enhanced neural connection, entering a special chamber Olivia had designed as Nathan monitored her brain activity. The process was painful, intense. Zoe screamed as the connection deepened her consciousness, temporarily merging with the ship's systems. When she emerged hours later, she was changed. Her eyes now had faint blue luminescence in the dark, and she spoke of seeing the universe differently, understanding spatial relationships and energy flows in ways humans never could. But she could now access systems previously locked, accessing weapons that could potentially turn the tide against the Vraxians one by one. The other pilots underwent the same procedure, each emerging with new abilities and insights. Marcus could now navigate through gravitational distortions. Derek could target hundreds of objects simultaneously. Laura could modulate weapon frequencies to adapt to enemy defenses as the final preparations were made. The crew gathered in Neptune Station's observation deck, looking at the 7 magnificent vessels that represented humanity's last hope. They shared a meal together, told stories of Earth before the invasion, made promises about what they would do after victory. Promises. Few believed they would live to keep that night as most of the crew slept. Eleanor stood alone in the command center of Lazarus I, communing silently with the ancient vessel, feeling its eagerness for battle, its hatred for the Vraxians, its satisfaction at finding worthy pilots after so long. She sensed something. The ship was trying to tell her something about capabilities. Still locked away, secrets the progenitors had hidden deep in the system. She probed, gently following the ship's guidance, and discovered coordinates, hundreds of them, scattered throughout the solar system, locations of something the ship considered vital to victory. She didn't understand yet, but she would. Before the Vraxians arrived, she had to. The alarm sounded through Neptune Station, waking everyone from uneasy sleep. The long-range sensors had detected movement. The Vraxian advance fleet had arrived at the edge of the solar system much earlier than expected. They had less than 48 hours to prepare humanity's final stand had begun. The command room of Neptune Station buzzed with tense activity as Admiral Gabriel studied the holographic display showing the advancing Vraxian fleet. Their sensors had detected 53 enemy vessels at the edge of the solar system near Pluto's orbit, the scouts of a much larger force still assembling beyond sensor range. Humanity had run out of time. The Admiral's face was grim as he outlined their only option: a preemptive strike using 3 of the Lazarus vessels to hit the Vraxian advance force before they could establish a foothold in the system. Captain Ryan stepped forward, volunteering to lead the mission. His neural connection to Lazarus II, stronger than most. He would command the strike team with Patricia as tactical officer, and Jason handling weapons. The rest of the elite pilots would remain at Neptune Station, protecting the remaining Lazarus ships and preparing for the main Vraxian fleet. The launch preparations moved with urgent precision crews working around the clock to ensure the 3 chosen vessels were ready for combat. Ryan sat in the command chair of Lazarus II, his mind linking with the ancient ship, feeling its systems respond to his thoughts beside him. Patricia and Jason took their positions, each connecting to their specialized systems. The neural interfaces now enhanced, allowing deeper access to the progenitor technology. The other crew members moved with practiced efficiency, checking systems, monitoring energy levels, ensuring everything was ready for humanity's first deliberate attack against the Vraxian forces. Eleanor stood on Neptune Station's observation deck, watching as the 3 massive vessels powered up their engines, glowing with ethereal blue light. She had wanted to join the mission, but Gabriel needed her knowledge of the ships to continue unlocking their secrets, particularly the mysterious coordinates she had discovered as the 3 Lazarus ships departed, accelerating rapidly toward the outer system. Eleanor returned to her research, knowing that every new discovery could mean the difference between survival and extinction. The journey to Pluto's orbit took only hours, the Lazarus ships moving at speeds impossible for human-built vessels. Ryan monitored the approach through both conventional sensors and his neural link, which gave him an almost mystical awareness of surrounding space. They detected the Vraxian fleet exactly where intelligence had indicated, spread in standard formation clearly, not expecting any resistance. This deep in the solar system, Ryan gave the order to engage, and the 3 ancient vessels accelerated to attack speed. Patricia activated the phase shift technology, making the ships partially slip out of normal space. Becoming nearly invisible to Vraxian sensors, the effect of their surprise attack was devastating. Lazarus II appeared directly in the middle of the Vraxian formation, its weapons firing before the enemy could react. 6 Vraxian cruisers vaporized. Instantly, their advanced shields useless against weapons designed specifically to counter them. The other 2 Lazarus ships struck from different vectors, creating a 3-dimensional attack pattern that left the Vraxian commanders unable to coordinate. A response, the battle unfolded with shocking speed. The Lazarus vessels moved with impossible grace, phasing in and out of detection, appearing in one location, firing devastating weapons, then reappearing elsewhere before the Vraxians could target them. The ancient ships absorbed hits that would have destroyed human vessels, their defensive systems adapting and strengthening against repeated attacks. Jason discovered that linking deeper with the weapon systems allowed him to modulate energy frequencies, making each shot more effective than the last, as if the ship was learning from each engagement. Patricia coordinated their movements, creating attack patterns that separated the Vraxian forces into vulnerable groups that could be picked off one by one. On Lazarus III communications officer, Heather monitored Vraxian transmissions, trying to decode their communications. When a damaged Vraxian vessel passed close to their position, she experienced an unexpected phenomenon, her neural link somehow connecting not just with her ship but briefly with the dying Vraxian vessel systems. In that moment, she received a flood of alien memories, images of dozens of worlds burning, entire species being systematically exterminated, celebration ceremonies following successful genocides. The Vraxians weren't just conquerors, they were exterminators who had wiped out countless civilizations across the galaxy. Humanity wasn't their first target, merely their latest. Heather's scream echoed through the communication system as the connection broke. The horrifying images seared into her mind. She shared what she had seen with the other crews, strengthening their resolve. The Vraxians had to be stopped, not just for humanity, but for all life in the galaxy. As the battle continued, Ryan noticed something concerning with each engagement. The Vraxian ships adjusted their tactics, learning from each encounter. Their later attacks became more coordinated, more effective against the Lazarus vessel's defenses. They were adapting their technology, studying the ancient ships and developing countermeasures even as their fleet was being decimated. After 3 hours of intense combat, the Vraxian advance force had been reduced to 7 vessels, which suddenly broke formation and fled toward the outer darkness. Ryan ordered a pursuit, but Patricia detected a transmission from the retreating ships, a complex data burst sent toward the main Vraxian fleet. The enemy was sharing everything they had learned about the Lazarus ships with their reinforcements. Despite the victory, the mood on the 3 vessels was somber. They had destroyed 46 Vraxian ships without losing any of their own, but intercepted communications revealed the true scale of what was coming. The main Vraxian armada consisted of over 10,000 vessels, far more than Earth's 7 ancient battleships could hope to defeat. Ryan made the decision to capture one of the damaged Vraxian ships that had been disabled, but not destroyed. They needed intelligence, needed to understand their enemy better. The boarding operation was dangerous, even with the enhanced protective gear developed from progenitor technology. A small team led by security officer Vanessa entered the crippled Vraxian vessel, finding most of the crew dead or dying. They secured one officer still alive, though severely injured, bringing it back to Lazarus II for interrogation. The return journey to Neptune Station was tense, the 3 Lazarus ships carrying both victory and troubling news. They had proven the ancient vessels could fight effectively against the Vraxians, but the enemy was adapting, learning with each encounter, and their numbers were overwhelming. When they arrived at Neptune Station, they were greeted as heroes, the first humans to strike successfully against the invaders. But Ryan immediately requested a command meeting to share what they had learned, particularly about the adapting Vraxian technology and the true size of the approaching fleet in the secure medical bay of Neptune Station. Vanessa began the interrogation of the captured Vraxian, using translation technology developed from the Lazarus ship's databanks. The alien was reluctant at first, but seemed to recognize the progenitor technology and showed signs of what could only be described as fear. With careful questioning, they made a shocking discovery. The Vraxians feared the Lazarus ships their entire civilization was built on the belief that they had exterminated the progenitors and all their technology. Tens of thousands of years ago, the re-emergence of these vessels represented an existential threat to Vraxian dominance. The alien revealed that their species had a cultural memory of the progenitor war, a time when they had nearly been defeated by the ancient race's superior technology. They had won through overwhelming numbers, not superior weapons, and the sight of progenitor battleships, once again active, struck terror into their leadership as the interrogation continued. Eleanor burst into the command center, her eyes wide with excitement. She had decoded more of the mysterious coordinates and discovered something that could change everything. The Lazarus ships weren't just battleships. They were command vessels designed to control vast fleets of automated crafts, and the coordinates pointed to manufacturing facilities hidden throughout the solar system, facilities that had been in deep hibernation for 100,000 years, waiting for activation signals from the command ships. Humanity might have just found a way to match the Vraxians' numbers. Nathan and Olivia worked without rest, analyzing the data. Eleanor had discovered the ancient progenitor files contained detailed maps of hidden facilities throughout the solar system, facilities designed to build and house massive fleets of automated combat vessels, thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, scattered across planets, moons, and asteroids, all in hibernation for 100,000 years, waiting for the command ships to awaken them. Nathan's eyes were red from exhaustion but filled with excitement as he explained to Admiral Gabriel that the 7 Lazarus ships weren't meant to fight alone. They were command vessels, the centers of a vast network designed to control unmanned fighters and support craft. Gabriel immediately understood the implications. If they could activate these dormant facilities, humanity might have a chance against the overwhelming Vraxian numbers. The Admiral ordered immediate missions to the coordinates, with the strongest signals starting with Jupiter's moon Europa, where energy readings suggested the largest concentration of progenitor technology. Colonel Eric volunteered to lead the Europa mission, his neural compatibility with Lazarus 5 making him the ideal choice. He selected a small team, including pilot Zoe, whose enhanced neural connection might help activate any dormant systems. They discovered the journey to Europa took less than a day. With the Lazarus ship's advanced propulsion system, they approached, cautiously scanning the icy moon for signs of the facility. Eleanor had detected initial readings showed nothing, but as they orbited the frozen world, Zoe sensed something responding to the Lazarus ship, a faint signal coming from beneath the thick ice. Eric ordered the ship to hover over the source of the signal and deployed specialized drilling equipment modified with progenitor technology to cut through Europa's frozen surface. The drill worked with astonishing speed, creating a shaft wide enough for their shuttle to descend through. They descended through miles of ice, eventually breaking through into an enormous cavern carved into the moon's rocky core. What they found inside left them speechless. Thousands of sleek, unmanned vessels arranged in perfect rows filled a space larger than any human shipyard ever built. Their designs varied from small fighter-sized craft to larger support vessels, all bearing the distinctive progenitor markings. Zoe approached what appeared to be a central control platform, her enhanced neural capabilities detecting an interface similar to those on the Lazarus ships. She placed her hands on the console and closed her eyes, establishing a connection to the facility systems. The effect was immediate. The cavern hummed, with awakening power lights activating across thousands of dormant vessels, assembly lines beginning to move, harvesting raw materials from Europa itself to construct new ships. Zoe's eyes glowed with the same blue light they had acquired during her enhanced neural connection as she communicated with the facility's ancient systems through her. The others learned that this was one of 12 major production centers hidden throughout the solar system designed to create a defensive fleet. If the progenitors ever needed to return to the system, the facility had been sustaining itself using Europa's resources for 100,000 years, waiting for the command signal that Lazarus 5 had finally provided. Similar missions to other coordinates yielded similar results, hidden facilities on Mars, Venus, and throughout the asteroid belt, all coming online. When contacted by their respective Lazarus command ships within days, humanity had access to a growing armada of progenitor technology automated vessels designed specifically to combat Vraxian forces. But a new challenge emerged. Unlike the command ships, these automated vessels could not be directly neural linked. They were designed to be controlled in swarms by the command vessels, requiring coordination beyond what their human crews could manage. Commander Diana proposed a solution after studying the command interfaces integrate Earth's AI systems with the progenitor technology, creating a hybrid control system that would allow human operators aboard the Lazarus ships to coordinate swarms of unmanned vessels. They immediately began adapting Earth's most advanced AI programs to interface with the ancient technology, Olivia leading the engineering teams in this unprecedented merger of technologies from civilizations separated by 100 millennia. As Earth prepared its newfound fleet, sensors detected the Vraxian main force arriving at the outer planets sooner than expected. Their first strike targeted Neptune station, hoping to destroy humanity's command center before the automated fleet could be fully activated. Admiral Gabriel, now aboard the flagship Lazarus I, led the defense. The battle was fierce, the Vraxians clearly aware of the Lazarus ship's capabilities and having adapted their weapons to be more effective against them. Gabriel's tactical brilliance and the ancient vessel's superior technology managed to repel the attack. But at great cost, Neptune Station suffered critical damage and Gabriel himself was gravely injured, a piece of shrapnel penetrating his environment suit during emergency repairs. The Admiral was rushed to medical, but his prognosis was uncertain. Leaving command in the hands of Captain Ryan, intercepted Vraxian communications revealed their new strategy, having failed to destroy Neptune Station. They planned to bypass Earth's defenses and target the newly discovered manufacturing facilities, cutting off humanity's ability to produce more ships with resources stretched thin. Ryan had to split their forces. The 7 Lazarus ships couldn't be everywhere at once. While coordinating the defense, Lieutenant Derek made a startling discovery while deepening his neural connection with Lazarus IV's tactical systems. He found reference to jump drive technology, allowing for instantaneous travel between star systems. This could give humanity the ability to take the fight directly to Vraxian territory to strike at their homeworld and command centers. But the technology came with a terrible cost. Using such systems required a complete neural interface that might permanently merge the pilot's consciousness with the ship's systems. Diana tested the jump calculations and confirmed they could potentially reach the Vraxian home system, but the neural strain would be enormous, likely fatal to most humans, even those with strong genetic compatibility. Meanwhile, the unmanned fleet grew larger each day, the facilities working at maximum capacity, but time was running out. The main Vraxian armada continued its advance, pushing deeper into the solar system, their numbers seeming endless. Despite the growing human fleet, Ryan called a meeting of all command staff aboard the damaged Neptune Station to plan their final strategy. He divided Earth's forces into 3 strike groups. The first, led by Commander Diana, would defend the production facilities, ensuring the continued growth of their fleet. The second, under Colonel Eric, would engage the Vraxian main fleet near Saturn's rings. Hoping to slow their advance, the third group would be the most dangerous, a small strike force piloted by those with the strongest neural compatibility who would attempt to use the newly discovered jump technology to attack the Vraxian homeworld. The plan was desperate, but with Gabriel incapacitated and the Vraxian numbers overwhelming, they had no choice but to take the fight directly to the enemy heart throughout the solar system. Humanity prepared for what might be their final battle. The production facilities accelerated their output. Earth's remaining military forces were integrated with the unmanned progenitor vessels, and the Lazarus ships prepared for the most ambitious combat operation in human history. Zoe volunteered to undergo the complete neural integration required to pilot the jump-capable command ship, her enhanced connection already stronger than any other pilot's, giving her the best chance of surviving the process. During the preparation, Eleanor continued working with Nathan to unlock more of the progenitor technology, particularly focusing on why the Vraxians feared these ancient ships so deeply. What they discovered hidden in the deepest layers of the ship's database suggested a weakness in Vraxian technology, a vulnerability that might be exploited if they could reach the enemy homeworld. As the 3 strike forces prepared to deploy, Ryan addressed the combined human fleet. His words, transmitted to every vessel, every facility, every surviving human outpost. He spoke of courage, of sacrifice, of the legacy they would leave, whether they lived or died this day. This was not just a fight for human survival, but for all the species. The Vraxians had exterminated or would exterminate if not stopped. The speech ended, and silence fell across the solar system for one brief moment before the orders came through, and the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity moved to their assigned position. Zoe entered the specialized chamber that would complete her neural integration with Lazarus I, permanently linking her consciousness with the ancient vessel. She looked back once at her fellow pilots, her friends and comrades, some of whom she had known since before the invasion, her eyes now permanently glowing with progenitor energy. She smiled and entered the chamber. The door sealed behind her and the process began. Meanwhile, the Vraxian fleet pushed past Uranus, their numbers, darkening space itself, their weapons primed for Earth's destruction. Humanity's final stand had begun. The solar system erupted in battle as humanity launched its counteroffensive against the Vraxian invaders. Captain Ryan, now in full command, divided Earth's forces precisely as planned. The first group under Commander Diana defended the vital production facilities scattered throughout the inner system. The second larger force, led by Colonel Eric, engaged the Vraxian main fleet near Saturn's rings, while the small strike team of 5 Lazarus ships with the strongest neural-compatible pilots prepared for the most dangerous mission, using the newly discovered jump technology to attack the Vraxian homeworld directly. Zoe emerged from the neural integration chamber, forever changed her consciousness, now permanently intertwined with Lazarus I. Her eyes glowed with blue progenitor energy, and she moved with strange grace as if partially existing in another dimension. She could sense the ship not as separate from herself, but as an extension of her own body. Every weapon, every defense system, every particle of the ancient vessel now as familiar to her as her own limbs. The 5-ship strike team departed Neptune Station, accelerating to the calculated jump point beyond Mars' orbit. The other 4 pilots who would attempt the dangerous jump were the best humanity had to offer, but even they watched Zoe with concern. Her transformation both fascinating and frightening, a glimpse of what might happen to them if they survived around Saturn. The main battle raged with ferocious intensity, Eric's forces using the unmanned progenitor vessels in swarm formations that confused and divided the Vraxian fleet. The automated ships moved with perfect coordination, striking from multiple vectors, then retreating before the enemy could respond. Effectively, the Lazarus ships serving as command centers directed hundreds of unmanned vessels, each human crews using the hybrid AI interfaces Diana had developed. Earth's defensive forces held their own, despite being outnumbered. The progenitor technology proving devastatingly effective against Vraxian ships that had adapted to fight human vessels, not their ancient nemesis. At the jump point, Zoe prepared her team for transition. The calculations were precise, but the risk remained enormous. She had absorbed the jump protocols directly through her enhanced neural connection. Understanding the process in ways the others could not, she explained that the jump would strain their neural links beyond anything they had experienced before, possibly beyond what human minds could survive. But there was no other choice. The Vraxian homeworld had to be attacked, if humanity was to have any chance of survival. One by one, the 5 pilots initiated the jump sequence, their ships disappearing from normal space in flashes of blue energy. The transition was more traumatic than any had imagined. 2 of the 5 pilots died instantly, their minds unable to withstand the strain. Another emerged with severe neural damage, her ship barely functional. Only Zoe and 1 other pilot named Ben survived with their vessels intact and their minds functioning. Though both were permanently altered by the experience, their consciousness now as much progenitor as human, they emerged in the Vraxian home system far from the nearest patrol and immediately activated their cloaking technology to avoid detection. Zoe used her enhanced senses to scan the system. What she discovered explained why the Vraxians were so desperate to eliminate all progenitor technology. The aliens had built their entire empire on stolen and reverse-engineered progenitor tech, but lacked the genetic key to access its full potential. Their civilization was constructed on imperfect copies of the very technology they had. Tried to destroy sensors, detected the central command nexus that controlled the Vraxian fleets throughout the galaxy, a massive space station orbiting their homeworld, heavily defended by thousands of warships. Ben suggested a direct assault, but Zoe sensed a better approach. She had been communicating with Eleanor back in the Sol system through a strange quantum link their shared neural connection to the progenitor technology had created. Eleanor had continued decoding the final progenitor records and discovered a failsafe protocol embedded in all their technology, including the reverse-engineered Vraxian systems, a shutdown command that could disable any technology derived from progenitor designs. The two surviving ships moved carefully through the Vraxian system, avoiding detection as they approached the command nexus. Zoe calculated they would have one chance to broadcast the shutdown signal before the Vraxians could respond. Their mission was complicated when patrol ships detected Ben's vessel, forcing him to engage in combat, drawing attention away from Zoe's approach. He fought brilliantly, his ship dancing through enemy formations, destroying dozens of vessels, but eventually succumbing to overwhelming numbers as his ship exploded. Zoe felt his consciousness somehow transfer through the progenitor network, his final thoughts merging with her own, giving her the strength to continue alone. She positioned her ship within broadcast range of the command nexus and initiated the shutdown protocol. The effect was immediate, and system-wide Vraxian ships simply stopped functioning, their engines, weapons, and life support systems shutting down, as the failsafe recognized the stolen technology and executed its ancient programming. Across the galaxy, Vraxian vessels attacking Earth suddenly drifted powerless in space, their crews trapped inside as their technology betrayed them. The central command nexus itself went dark, its controllers panicking as their systems failed without warning. In the chaos that followed, Zoe broadcast a message to the Vraxian leadership explaining what had happened and offering terms humans would spare their civilization if they surrendered unconditionally and agreed to return to their original territory, never again attempting to expand through conquest or genocide. Faced with the complete collapse of their technology and military power, the Vraxian leadership had no choice but to accept with their technological advantage neutralized. They sued for peace, hoping to prevent their complete annihilation back in the Sol system. The sudden shutdown of Vraxian vessels brought confusion, then celebration, as humans realized what had happened. The invaders who had nearly destroyed Earth were defeated, their mighty fleet rendered useless by ancient technology designed for exactly this purpose. In the months that followed, humanity began to explore beyond their solar system, using their newfound fleet, discovering other species that had suffered under Vraxian oppression. Earth became the center of a new alliance with humans as the genetic inheritors of the progenitor legacy, many worlds joining together to rebuild what the Vraxians had destroyed. Admiral Gabriel recovered from his injuries to lead the new alliance, while Captain Ryan oversaw the continued production of progenitor vessels, now adapted with human innovations. But perhaps the most profound change came to those like Zoe, whose consciousness had merged with the ancient technology. They became something new, neither fully human nor progenitor, but a bridge between worlds, able to access knowledge and abilities beyond normal human comprehension. Eleanor studied this transformation, hoping to understand what it meant for humanity's future, whether it represented the next step in human evolution, guided by their genetic ancestors from 100,000 years ago. Zoe herself changed the most, her mind now containing fragments of Ben's consciousness. As well as access to the vast progenitor network, she discovered references in the ancient data to progenitor outposts in distant star systems, suggesting that perhaps some of the ancient race had survived the Vraxian genocide, fled to remote regions of the galaxy, and continued their existence in isolation. She proposed a mission to find these possible survivors, to learn from them, and perhaps understand humanity's true place in the cosmic order. Gabriel approved the mission, providing her with the best crew available, though many were nervous about serving under someone who was no longer entirely human. The final scene showed Zoe's ship, a modified Lazarus vessel, equipped with enhanced jump technology, preparing to depart Earth orbit. A small fleet of exploration vessels would follow her jump coordinates once she confirmed they were safe. Eleanor joined her on the bridge one last time, also partially transformed by her deep neural connection with progenitor technology, though to a lesser degree than Zoe. Together they initiated the jump sequence, their ship disappearing in a flash of blue energy, headed toward an unexplored region of space, following a faint signal that bore the unmistakable signature of the vessel's creators. Humanity's vengeance was complete. The Vraxians defeated and contained the dormant battleships that had waited so patiently beneath the lunar surface, had fulfilled their purpose, and now offered something unexpected: hope for a future among the stars, a future where humans might meet their ancient benefactors and learn the truth of their cosmic heritage.